Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our 19th edition on the Speak the Truth in Love Ministry with Miss Veronica Mirembe Benedictio. And today is Thursday, and I want to share something in regard to marriage and our generation. This may be a marriage tip. Just like I say, I may not necessarily be married at the moment, but there is a lot I'm learning and reading about marriage. And the fact that I'm an educator, I think at times I'm very enthusiastic about sharing these truths. At times I am really silenced by so many people to stop doing what I'm doing, especially when I speak about marriage. I have no idea about what I'm talking about. I'm just speaking it in the theory. But I personally question and ask myself, if we can go to the university and get skills and study courses in different things, how come it becomes like a little like the world will say much, you cannot talk about marriage because you are not already there, so you have nothing to say, you don't understand. So it really bothers me as an individual. If we can study about the different things or learn about different things, why does learning about marriage seem to be wiseacring, seem to be like Miss Perfect, Miss Know-it-all, when we can learn things in different areas of our lives or aspects of our lives and apply them to our life situations? But why does learning about marriage seem to be like you are wiseacring? And it is why personally I refuse to be silenced by those who tell me to stop sharing about marriage, because I have a whole book I have authored called Truth Children Need to Know About Truth. It's called Truth. It's called Why Modern Marriages Fail in Our Generation. In fact, I will share an excerpt in in this video in regard to the things I have shared in this book, to show the world that I do not need to be married to share about marriage, because there are so many things you can you can read in the Bible about marriage. There are things you can listen to. There is information out there, I believe, that can be shared about marriage for us to have knowledge, because at times there is a lot of confusion or discouragement in marriages because probably some of us never knew these truths. So this is a marriage tip, and this is a marriage tip I got I got from one of my books. I got from that book, one of my book, Why Modern Marriages Fail, and tips of knowing how to navigate through marriage this day and era that I may not really know because I am not yet married, but I can share with the world through what I'm reading, through the counseling I do with married people, and I believe can help someone out there. So one, we have to know we are a generation that prepares for a wedding and not marriage. And then we have to know a wedding is a one-day event and everyone walks away, but a marriage is a lifetime commitment. It's a lifetime covenant. But we live in our generation where most of us prepare for marriage, for the wedding, but hardly prepare for marriage. It is why most of us as young people, we enter marriage with a lot of excitement, excuse me, but few stay there with wisdom because we have not learned certain truths before getting married. I personally speak to myself and I'm like, if I had gotten married at the age of 24, 25, which was my desire, I would have been divorced or I would have been fed up by now. But the truths I have learned about modern marriages are enough to keep me with my soulmate if I get married, because at times I believe knowledge is power. And at times there's a saying that ignorance is no excuse of the law. At times there is pain, there is frustration we go through because we have not acquired certain knowledge. Obutamanya tebukujjako musango. But at times when you have knowledge on certain things, you will not repeat the mistakes you have seen others do, or you will try to be a better person because you have gotten a revelation of seeing these mistakes. So one, I'm sharing about how we are a generation that prepares for a wedding and not marriage. And it is why you see in just 3 months, most people are frustrated or they think they made a mistake because at times we hardly knew certain truths about marriage as we were making these decisions. Just like I shared in my earlier videos, we are a generation that get into marriage because of societal pressure, because of comparisons, because of fear of being alone. And at times you enter something we are not mentally, physically prepared for because we think it is just about excitement. We live in a generation where weddings are so many. We attend weddings every Saturday, but the rate of divorce is so high, and I believe it's because at times we are not enlightened about certain truths about marriage, and it's the reason I believe I was led by the Spirit to share some of these things in this book, Why Modern Marriages Fail. No one, we have to know marriage does not solve loneliness but only exposes it. Whenever you get married and think it is what is going to make you happy, you will be very disappointed because at times as a generation we have not known these truths, and it is the reason there is a lot of suffering and conflict in marriages because we think we get married to get happiness. We have to know no human being is the source of your happiness when you have not learned how to be happy alone. And it is why I share these things, because personally having battled manic attacks as a result of bipolar disorder, where I used to think my happiness has to come from a relationship, is the reason I'm here after overcoming this anxiety about marriage to help so many young people in our generation. You may not have gone through a mental health disorder, but at times we all have these issues where we live in a society that trains us to run after men, that trains us to just be excited about marriage, but we are not preparing, we actually don't understand what we are entering in. There is something I tell the younger generation. When we look at our grandparents, our parents, they have been together for a long time, and when we compare the wedding ceremonies, they only used to have mandazi and tea. They used to have popcorns and tea and go back home, but they are still happily married. But us as a generation who have weddings of billions and millions of money hardly last in our marriages because we think it is all about excitement. We have not known certain truths that marriage is about patience, it is about endurance, it is about bearing one another's weaknesses. And most of us are in marriages, or people get into marriage and they are concentrating on people's weaknesses instead of concentrating on their strengths. And I believe those are the truths the latter generations knew that some of us have not adhered to as the former generation. We are a generation where we only look at the wedding excitement but are not prepared for marriage. And it is why most of us are depressed, have separated, are walking in divorce, because at times we have not known certain truths. No, as I continue to share, because I also went through this. Whenever you think, when I get married, when ndifumbirwa wengendo okubeera omusanyufu, when ndifuna abaana wengendo okubeera omusanyufu, when ndibeera n'omwami, when ndibeera n'omukyala, you will be very disappointed, because we live in a generation where there are very many married people who are lonely because they never knew certain truths. No, we have to know, just like I've been saying, marriage does not solve loneliness. Marriage does not take away your insecurities, because we think we want to get married. You want someone to tell you how you're beautiful, how you are smart, how you are intelligent. We want to get married to solve our identity issues, to solve our insecurities, and we hardly know you are going with a fellow human being who also battles their insecurities, who also has their identity issues they are fighting, and then you think he's going to be the source of your happiness. And it is why most of us are wounded, because we have not probably known certain truths. There's something I like sharing out of experience. Whenever you enter a relationship and think a man is going to be the source of your happiness, a woman is going to be the source of your happiness, even we make statements, I have married for peace. This is very wrong. No human being can give you peace when you have not given yourself peace. No human being can give you happiness when you have not chosen to be happy on your own. And it is why I'm trying to share with the young people out there, whenever you get married, to solve things like identity, your insecurities, at times it is why we are wounded. We have to know there are certain wounds at times that are not healed by your spouse, but they are only healed by your creator. And the reason at times it is why it is beautiful when two complete people go together for marriage, to complement each other and not to complete. Because marriage only complements but never completes. When two complete people enter a relationship, it will be easier to complement each other than going in marriage because you want to be completed by someone else. No, we have to know marriage never completes us but only complements us. And it is the reason when two complete people who all draw their happiness from within, from their creator, come together, they won't wound each other because they have gotten to know they are not depending on each other for happiness. They are not depending on each other for identity, but they just come together to complement each other. They will not compete. No, we live in marriages where people are competing with each other, where people are comparing each other. And it is the reason at times we are wounded in our marriages because we have not known certain truths. It is why I encourage someone out there, I encourage myself who's waiting on God, to first be complete in Christ before meeting a man. To first be complete, to first be happy with myself before thinking a man is going to be the source of my happiness. Because I'll be disappointed, and that was the mentality I had that kept me in mental illness, because I used to think my happiness has to come from a relationship, which is so wrong. It is why I'm encouraging so many young people out there, be complete as a single, have a life before you think about entering into marriage. Because these are some of the things that are not shared, I believe, in premarital counseling that most of us need to listen to as young people before entering relationships. Neda tulina okumanya obufumbo mpisa. Because at times we hardly have worked on our characters but are praying for marriage. We are praying for a saint, but you are not a saint. It is why I speak to myself, let me work on my character before I think, because you're praying for a man who is perfect, but are you perfect yourself? Are you working on your character? There are things we have to pray for and work in our lives before thinking about marriage, because they are some of the foundations of marriage. No, there's something I tell young people. Beauty may get you a man, but it is character that keeps a man. Obulungi bukufunyisa omwami, naye empisa ze zikuuma omwami, embalayo yekuuma omwami. Because at times we are seeing so many beautiful ladies, but they are struggling in their marriages because they have no character. They are rude, they are very disrespectful, they are very unforgiving, they are very bad-tempered, I tell young men out there, a handsome wallet, a six-pack, a handsome face, an American height may get you a lady, But it is a handsome character that keeps a man, a lady, It is a character, it is a humble character that keeps a lady. It is why I'm speaking to ladies and I'm speaking to myself. Omuganda agamba obulungi sidya. Beauty does not necessarily connote to marriage. But what marriage is about, character. Obufumbo bugumiikiriza. Marriage is about sacrifice. It is about endurance, bearing each other's weaknesses, knowing that you're not going to find a saint. No, it is why I'm telling people, we are a generation, we prepare for a wedding and not marriage. And it is why you see, you'll go and you have gotten married, and after honeymoon, omwami abogole ogambe nti nze nzirayo waffe. Omwami abogole, because at times we have not known certain truths. A wedding is a one-day thing. Everyone agenda basibula buli omu agende ewaabwe, kati mu ababiri mutandika okutambuza ekintu kyammwe. And it is why I tell people, tewali yali yagala kumanya oba wedding yo yali ya sente meka, oba empeta gyo yambala ya sente meka, oba bali, those things are none, they are not, it is only the two of you who want to know. It is why I tell people we should use wisdom as we are doing certain things. Oba wayambala gomesi ya sente meka ku kwanjulako, tewali yagala kumanya, eyo bikwata ku mwaba ababiri gwe n'omwami wo. And it's why you see we are living in a generation, people after the wedding are so frustrated, they have issues, they have stress, because they are into expenses and they are doing things to prove a point to the world. You know, we are a generation where we get married to prove a point to the world, but we do not know marriage is a thing between two people. Mwababiri mwabayina okutambuza ekintu kyammwe. Katwemba temwetegese mwenga ababiri chovola batutuuka ne twekyawa tetulina bugumiikiriza kwa tetutegedde bitutute mu bufumbo. You know, and it is why I'm speaking to a young person out there. Prepare for marriage and not a wedding. No, there are things I tell young boys. Akabina entumbwe n'akabina biggwako. And if reality sets in, ng'entumbwe n'akabina ebyo tebisobola kufumbira mmere, you will be unhappy your entire life. No, I tell young girls, sente wallet eyinza but sente ezo nga zaaweddewo. No, there are things we have to know. There are things we have to work on before thinking about marriage. Work on your character. Let us work on our character. You know, are we patient? Are we forgiving? Are we humble? Because there are certain things we have to know. Disagreements in marriage are inevitable. It is why we are told marriage is not a bed of roses. Because as long as two human beings with different personalities and backgrounds have come together, there will have to be fights, there will have to be quarrels, there will have to be conflict. But the way you handle your fights and conflict is what is going to make the difference. Mulimu ebintu ebimu by'olina okuyiga nga tonnafumbirwa ebigenda okukuuma obufumbo bwo. The tones we address issues in our marriages. And these are the things I have shared in this book, why modern marriages fail. Omwami agenda kubuuza socks zange ziriwa, genda ozeenoonyeze. You know, and it's the Bible that says in Proverbs 15 verse 1, a gentle answer turns away anger, but a kind word. Kati mulimu amazima g'ogenda okumanya mu Bible oga applying mu marriage. Omukyalo agenda kubuuza walidde emmere nagiriddewa. Kati there are certain things we have to also learn as human beings, as people who are praying for marriage, and know at times all conflict in marriage is as a result of the tones people are using in their marriages, and is why they are unhappy. Unresolved conflict in marriage. You know, no, there are certain truths we have to know about marriage. We are seeing in our families, we are seeing in communities as we counsel people, we are seeing in the church, and they will take you places. You know, as a lady, you have to know, like a submissive character keeps a man, a respectful character keeps a man. There are things I tell ladies, no man wants a disrespectful wife. However beautiful you are, but a disrespectful, you will have issues in your marriage. You know, there are things I speak to young ladies and I speak to myself. Respect to man is equally a need as intimacy. You will not be in a marriage where you shout at a man, where you disrespect a man because you think you have more money, because you think, and there are things I tell people. We have to know God has given all of us different temperaments and characters for a reason. There's a temperament you may have. You may be a leader. Personally, I speak to myself. But you don't have to control a man. Because there's a difference between having a temperament of leadership, but you're not controlling a man. Kubanga abami tebagala bakyala babafuga. You know? And it's why we have to know a submissive character will help us keep a man in marriage. But we live in a generation because a lady earns more money than a man, and they are very disrespectful to a man, and it's why they have no peace. And we also have to know men, as long as you are not taking on your position of responsibility, it is hard for a woman to submit to you, you know. And it's the reason you see we live in a generation that is so troubled, because men also hardly take on their responsibility or take on, because at times it is very hard for a woman to submit when you are not responsible and you're taking on your duties as a man. No, we have to know responsibility is not all about money. But are you taking on your position as a man? You know, because oluusi nze omukyala sigenda gonda nga gwe totuukiriza bintu by'omukama bye yakutondera ng'omwami by'olina kukola waka. You know, it is why we have to know in marriage, when every side, the lady takes on her duties and the man takes on her duties, marriage will be happier and better because everyone is standing in their position. You know, because at times ladies are disrespectful to men because they're also not responsible. But if a man is responsible, it will be easy for a woman to submit. No, we have to know things like a respectful character, a submissive character, a hardworking character, a humble character. You know, because at times there are things we take for granted. We have not known these truths, and it is why we are battling in our marriages. It is why there is no peace in most marriages, because we have not known certain truths. We have not known certain truths that we are a generation where we do not know our marriages have a purpose attached to them. And it is why we walk away. We are very impatient. Tetulina bugumiikiriza ng'abaana b'omulembe guno mu bufumbo. But when we look at the latter generations, our grandparents, our parents are still happily married because they got to know these truths. You know, they got to know that two individuals who come from different families and they have different backgrounds, will always have issues. You know, arguments are inevitable, conflict is inevitable, but the way you approach conflict is what makes the difference. You know, approaching conflict in ways that are amicable, in ways that are respectful, will help you keep your marriage. No, there is something I tell young ladies out there. No sanga omwana omuwala ng'avuma omusajja, gwe mbizi gwe ono taata w'abaana bo. Kati mulimu ebintu tumanyi obusungu bubeeramu, but handling conflict in a respectful tone is also an added advantage in marriage if you are going to make your marriage work. You know, we are told marriage is hard. It is true, marriage is hard. But at times we have to know marriage is what you make it. Because how come there are very many people who are happily married in our Dan era, but there are some who are fighting because they have not known certain truths? No, we have to stop allowing this perspective the world puts in us. There are no happy marriages because there are people who are still in their marriages, who have worked together even for 50 years, for 50 years, and they are still happily married even more than 50 years, and they can testify that marriage is a beautiful thing. Why do we have to be discouraged by people out there? Tewachali bufumbo buchaliyo. Because people knew certain truths. You know? People knew marriage is about selflessness, sacrifice. But at times you have to agree to disagree, but still respect each other. And is why I'm telling young people, let us learn this. These are things I have shared in my book. You know, spouses and couple have to know that disagreeing with your spouse or your husband or your wife does not mean that you disrespect them. Because people can agree to disagree but still respect and love one another. You know, it does not mean because I don't agree with you on something as your wife, I hate you or I disrespect you. Because we are different. God has created all of us with different thinkings. And it is why you won't agree on everything in marriage. But you find at times all conflict is because people are not agreeing on issues and they think they don't love each other, which is wrong. People can disagree, can agree to disagree, but still respect and love each other in marriage. And it's the reason we have to know there are certain truths we have to know about marriage that are taking us places. There are things I have shared in this book. Solomon wrote in the book of Proverbs, better to live on a rooftop than living with a quarrelsome wife. As a wife, at times you have a very quarrelsome temperament. You are very quarrelsome and there is no peace at your home. And it is why your marriage has failed. It is why you see your husband will come back, he will first be in the bar and then come, because there is no peace at home. No, at times as ladies, we are very lazy. You are very lazy. You can hardly take on your responsibilities in your marriage, and it's the source of all unhappiness in your marriage because of that lazy temperament. You know, at times as a lady, you are very dirty. tulina okumanya ebintu bino ffe nga basingo twekolemu omulimu nga tetunnayingira bufumbo. It is why I tell people being single is not a curse, but is a season of self-discovery, self-awareness, okwekolamu omulimu in that oyingira obufumbo nga weetegese. Kuba mulimu amazima g'ogenda okumanya nga single gakufuula ow'eddembe. No, you are a single but you can't cook food. No, we live in a generation where ladies abaami babalisa KFC. Omwami tasaana afumbira mwami w'emmere talina budde. And what are we sharing? It is such simple things we take for granted, and the reason we have so many conflicts in our marriages because we have not known certain truths. You know, tewali mukyala ayagala mwami atamusamu like abeerawo namala. You know, there are certain things we have to learn on both sides. I'm not only concentrating on ladies, I really concentrate on a lady because I am a lady and it is what applies to me. Tulina okumanya Silver Kyagulanyi yayimba oluyimba. Abakyala abalina empisa tebalema maka. Mulimu ebintu ebimu like laba bbaawa musamu ekitiibwa wakitamuwa kisanja. You know, and he talked about all those temperaments. Nakamwantete, simanya oyayomba nakolachi. There are things we have to know, even through listening to such songs. Let us have the message we are getting from such songs. We can listen to songs like the lady is called Maureen Nantume. You know, kino kyoyingiddemu kiringa kiyungu ogenze kufumba there are songs that they were sung in those later generations that had meaning, you know, and they can even you can learn about marriage through just listening to a song, you know. But there are things we think we are a generation, we have weddings, we are very excited, we are showing off, we are into showbiz, and it is why tebirimu mikisa. Tukola embaga kweraga kulaga nange yange yali wet. Ne I tell you tewali ayagala kumanya nti ne wedding gown yo yali ya sente mmeka, tewali ayagala kumanya nti decoration, tewali ayagala na kumanya kubanga ebyo byaba biri. Kati oba kyoyingiddemu tokitegedde, ojja kikabiramu amaziga kuba walowooza wagenda mu byakweraga. No, I'm telling people there are things that do not matter. Oba your wedding was in Serena Chigo, oba it was in Munyonyo, and my wedding was just in a church, it is okay. I may be happily married because chenayingira munchitegeera. Oba nyambala empeta ya milioni 5, oba yambala empeta ya milioni 5, nga nyambala empeta ya mtwalo gumu. Even my marriage may be happier, because I have peace in my marriage. Nga gwayambala empeta ya milioni 5 tolina busanyu mu bufumbo bo kubanga there are things we do not know as a generation. People do weddings it's just show off business, but we do not know that marriage is meant to glorify God. And it's why you say we have no peace and happiness in our marriages because we're into showbiz business, we're into showbiz, and hardly know these things are just affecting us. Have we learned things like patience? No, there are things I tell people, a wedding is a one-day thing, buli omu agenda kutambula. Kati, like, okoze kumbalayo. Have you worked on your character? And you begin this institution and reality sets in. After honeymoon, after the wedding bliss, after, you know, and then omwami abogole. Omuchala akambuwale. Have you learned that have you grown in the fruit of the Spirit? Have you grown in love, in patience, in self-control, in kindness, in gentleness? Kati mulimu ebintu ebimu bye tugenda okumanya mu mulembe guno. And it's why I advise people, look out for my book, Why Modern Marriages Fail, by Veronica Mirembe Mukisa. Veronica Mirembe Benedict, because I have shared some of these truths according to biblical truths through the things I listen to, the things I read, the counseling I do with people, and my own life experience. So as I finish this video, let me speak to someone out there. Let us be a generation that prepares for marriage and not a wedding, because marriage is a covenant. You know, a covenant before God, and we live in a generation where even we easily say nendagano bazimenya. And it's why I tell people there are things no one will ever want to know. Oba empeta yo ya milioni 5 ngeyange ya mtwalo gumu nyinza okuba kyennyingiddemu nkitegeera. You know, and it's why I'm encouraging people out there, let us prepare for marriage and not a wedding. Thank you very much for listening to me, and have a beautiful Thursday. May God bless you.